fancy intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Welcome back, Star Trek Fleet Command fans. It's time for your favorite party patch notes. Yeah, we're going to go through all the slop together, talk about some of the things I actually am happy about, some of the things I'm frustrated about, and give you my opinion on what you're going to see starting today. Don't forget, hit us up on our Twitch account. We'll be giving away 10 battle passes this week, and as always, a big thank you to Scopely for letting us do that. So even though I might not like all the content, I do appreciate them supporting the community with things like that. So that's pretty neat. So let's go ahead and jump into the notes, talk about what this month is going to present to all of you, the good and the bad. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to scroll down to the missions. Core missions, starting at level 35. If you're below that, a little bit of a bummer. Obviously, a lot of the content that we have now coming out for higher levels. You can call that a mid-level player if you're at level 35 at this point in the game. However, still definitely understand. Shout out to servers like I play on 710 and some of the newer servers, the newest server being 714 on the US side. Well, I mean, they want new content too. So as the game tries to make it easier to level up, also want to see more access to just things like missions. Don't need to make missions available 35 and 40 plus. Make them available to everybody to play and enjoy their Star Trek lore and Star Trek content. But before we get too stuck on those, let's go ahead and move into some of that content like the USS Relativity. Brand new. We talked about it in the preview episode, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I'll give you some of the basics. Look, one really good thing about this is that it has a free-to-play path day one, and I think that is a great thing. It's available to everybody at level 42 and above to start working on in their DTI faction. Now, this works very similar to the Relativity, meaning it's 200 blueprints, and you can start working on it early, and it isn't tied to an obscure mechanic like how the Vindicator is tied to arenas, thus making it extremely difficult to obtain, or how the NSCA is tied to galactic invasions, which sadly has been inconsistently run, even though it was originally promised to be consistently 2 times a month. So ships that are worth going after, but difficult. This is following the format that does work, which is tying it to the faction, tying it to the loop, and there you go. So that's how you can go after it, because these tools will be available. The formation armadas are persistent, as are the entities, obviously. So starting with the how to do it, you can see the little pinpoints up here in the patch notes. The Relativity is here to aid in the fight against the Crenum. With its increased damage versus the Crenum entities, that's going to be the armadas as well as the formation armada. To do the loop, you're going to use its ability to take on the charged or the static. Sorry, I got a little dramatic with the holodeck episodes above. Black and white, Voyager, whole thing. Should we do a Captain Proton arc? I think a Captain Proton arc would be pretty cool. Comment down below. The Warp Drive 5 agree with me, so I mean, if they agree, so should you. But as you can see, the Relativity will increase your FKR runs, will also just do really well, and also is tied to unlocking Seska, the officer, which is pretty neat. That is something that starts at tier 5 of this ship. We'll see that here in a second, as well as some of the new artifacts. Let's scroll on down. Like I said, love the free-to-play pathing day one. That's a good thing. As far as the ship itself, we'll go through that. There is new research, and that is tied to the ship, so bear that in mind, and keep in mind that the ship is going to be something that you need going forward. Now, whether you choose to obtain it early is completely up to you. This is one of those things that I think it depends very much on where you are as a player. A lot of players able to take on the Crenum entities completely fine now using the exocomms, but it's not going to help you with the formation armadas. See how y'all decide on that, but we'll look at that here in a second. Let's talk about the new research. You have a boosting of the warp range for the Relativity, which will be important going after some of those higher Crenum entities and such. Crenum invading entity loot, so like a lot of specialty ships, it'll give you more loot for its loop. Again, predictable, if not be it consistent. In terms of patterns, Crenum invading entity damage, again, pretty obvious, going to increase your damage, burst said entities, and then expand the cargo capacity of the Relativity. Finally, Relativity Crenum formation loot. Again, giving more loot through the formation armadas using the Relativity. It is going to be the main ship you want to use. We'll explain those armadas a little bit more here in a second. So you have the increased damage dealt with the formation armadas. Then you have increased apex barrier versus the entities. Remember, can't use Tau on the bridge. Big no-no. Cardinal sin. Never have Tau. Tau's bad. No Tau. All right. Increased hull health for all ships and increased shield health for all ships. I do typically like these. Yeah, it's generic. Yeah, we have a bunch of it, but more is more. We celebrate more is more. New DTI faction rewards. So you have the ship parts to upgrade the ship. You have the static and charged research dust. You then have the exclusive officer claim. So gain access to Officer Seska shards as you tier up your relativity with a guaranteed full unlock of Seska at tier 5. Remember, this is a 14 tiers plus 1, so 15. Starts off tier 1, obviously. 15 tier ship starting off at level 42, so making it to tier 5 gives a full unlock of the officer, which I think is pretty neat. Granted, yes, you have to do the upgrade process, but hey, it's nice to know exactly when you're going to get something in the game. Again, we talk about inconsistencies with STFC. When do I unlock things? Well, that's pretty much a difficulty. Not everything is as amazing as this Michael Dorn signed Klingon hockey jersey. Sometimes it's inconsistent, but at least with this, you know what you're getting. So you have the Relativity Daily Claim, which is good. The Relativity Blueprints and the Temporal Flux Countermeasures, as well as, last but certainly not least, the Artifact Claims with getting a guaranteed unlock of the Crenum Hair Artifact at tier 6. Let's talk about those formation armadas here real quick and in a hurry. So these are very unique in terms of how they are set up and designed. And as you can see an image of them here, you have a neutral one. So for the neutral, you bring 4 normal ships. They work like normal formation armadas, 4 ships per leg. However, you need, hear me out here, you need a relativity for the charged and the static, meaning you need the relativity's ability turned on, that's anti-charged and anti-static, to run these, or they will hurt you very, very badly. Now, the neutral one, you can have whatever you want there. It could be your Valdor, your Pylum, Tribune, Porcha, your Enterprise D. However, you're going to need your players in your alliance, somebody with the relativity, whether y'all take the time to grind it free to play down the road, or whether you go and purchase it, you want to have a relativity. Now, read the notes here with me, just make sure we're on the same page. So the Charged Temporal Dreadnought abilities, Charged Quantum Shielding, increases defenses cumulative each round if the relativity static temporal shift ability is not active. Again, feed the ability. I know everybody's going to ask about the exocomps. Feed the ship. Static one. Decreases isolytic damage cumulative each round if the relatively charged temporal is not there. Now, a little bit confusing because for the static temporal dreadnought, apparently we need the charged temporal shift ability. Pay attention to it. Match icons to icons. That's the key thing. You'll also notice these armadas are color coded. You can see which ones are which. Make sure you're activating the right one. Then, of course, like I said with the neutral, doesn't have any of the phase alignment, so you can bring your regular ships. And just like a formation armada, the goal is to take down all 3 legs. So here's what you get. While the relativity is able to utilize its stance switching ability to combat these temporal dreadnoughts, it cannot defeat all 3 nodes in a single formation armada alone. For optimal results, try using 2 ships. Like I said, need 1 to be charged, 1 to be static. Take it down. And then you will need 100 Crenum formation armadas to engage with the new ones. And then you'll get encrypted intelligence and Crenum temporal wreckage. Here are the locations of these, and these are in the systems where you're already going after entities in that area. Now, new officers. I'm very curious to see what people think of the officers. I actually really like Annorax. Let me explain why. Captain's ability. These are a new PvE officer set, but for the first time ever, look, we can talk a lot of smack, but increasing loot in the chest. Read that, everybody. Hostile chest loot, getting a boost there in terms of a loot ability. Other officers don't work like that are loot officers. That's unique. That can be quite valuable to a lot of you PvE players out there in the game. Officer ability, time is patient, increasing apex barrier. So you have 2 rares here between Suitor and Seska. Seska being the one that you get a guaranteed unlock at tier 5 of your relativity. But her officer ability increases shield health of your ship every round, and then below deck ability, a critical hit damage increase cumulative based on weapon shots. Then Suitor is repairing the hull as an officer on previous round when fighting hostiles. Below deck, increasing hit damage by a static amount for 5 rounds when fighting hostiles. Pretty neat, I think, crew to add to your PvE arsenal. I think it'll be really nice to pick up. Temporal artifacts, I know I love artifacts. The very nice Crenum Hair, more ISO damage. We talked about how much of a fan I am of that. Well, that's the one that, again, tied to the relativity. The Temporal Device for ISO defense. The TTI Plaque for more damage against the entities and armadas. That's all entities, by the way. LERPA for temporal wreckage loot for defeating the entities. Again, I think a lot of people are going to want that. Friendship 1 probe, improving the base cost efficiency of upgrading G5 ships. Love that. And then love this. Amelia Earhart's plane cost efficiency of upgrading G6 ships in materials. 2 very nice ones. Then you have your battle pass and cosmetics. Normally, when it comes to bug fixes, I wouldn't get that big on it, but I do want to talk about those real quick. Little preview of some of the events upcoming. Take note of that. Let's move on because I know I've been talking a lot already, but a lot of information in this one and a couple of really nice things. Now, I will say, sorry to say this, Scopely, most of what you put in these bug fixes are pretty blah, and including you did an entire article about other bug fixes that were pretty blah, like talking about changing text and stuff, like, hey, we found a typo. And I get it, stuff matters, and I'm sure there are people who care. But I do want to point out to players who maybe see this, you're like, I don't care about reading about typos that were fixed. And there are some things that I think are really important to note, including 2 things that I personally advocated for to get fixed that did. Yeah, I'm tooting my own horn. Well, you came to my channel, you know how I am. I'm going to toot it a little bit, and thank you for those in game design, live ops, etc., who do listen to Rev still. It's greatly appreciated. If you scroll on down, a couple things that I think are heckin' great. Number 1, might not mean much to y'all, but I'm a diehard Star Trek fan. Tutorial phasers, Busar collectors. During the tutorial phases, we're firing from the Busar collectors instead of the pulse phasers arrays. We've aligned the VFX so they fire from the correct location. If you have no idea what it's talking about, it's stuff like this. It really bugged and chapped my rear end. This was not quality. They don't shoot out the nacelles. Anyway, I'm not going on a tangent. They fixed it, and yes, it matters to Rev. But for one that's a little bit more important to all of you, again, this is a big thank you to Scopely for fixing this because I didn't honestly know if they do it. This one right here. Mirror research with G6 Sigma. Some mirror research nodes were dependent on G6 Sigma research, requiring level 61 and above. Those mirror nodes no longer are contingent on G6 content. So many of you are going to have more mirror nodes have just opened up with this update, allowing you to do more mirror research that was locked before. I honestly did not know if they would change this. I brought it up to them. They talked about it and they did it. Can't take all the credit. Obviously, they had to make the decision, but I will say I'm very appreciative of that fix. I think that is actually really good for the community. So thumbs up to that one. And shout out to all the other things like, hey, they fixed the Alliance icon on the starbase. Those still exist. Now the icon's even better. Want to know what all of you think about this month and the things you see in the patch notes? You know what? There are some good things here, and I'm hoping you have a good time. We'll see how it goes. As always, live long and plunder. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Catch you on the next one. Stay safe for the Space Cowboys. Hey, go Klingons. Yeah, I'm on a Klingon kick, man. I mean, like a really hardcore Klingon kick. Love them.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.